This year's Summer Game Fest has come and went, once again presented to us by Geoff Keighley, looking just as much like a soulless golem as ever. And he's here today to present to us two things: his relentless, never-ending craving for Kojima's dick and balls, along with a handful of new game releases, some looking interesting, and others looking like your typical tranny-coded movie games. But on the plus side, I will say that this year's Game Fest was definitely better than last year's, as if that's saying anything given how low the bar is already set. But the reason I say that is because unlike most years where I have maybe 2 to 3 games to look forward to, there were actually a handful that were revealed this year that at the very least piqued my interest enough to maybe follow their development. And after listening to Keighley run his fucking gob for 3 hours, the way I've decided to break down the show is by going over it 1 hour at a time and just talking about the games that I either found interesting or I think look dog shit enough to point and laugh at for a minute or two. But unfortunately, unlike the Summer Game Awards, we do not have the Muppets around this time to point and laugh at Geoff Keighley and point out just how fucking boring and shit covered this waste of time really is.
Oh yeah, time to watch Keighley make a fool of himself again.
Exactly! I love this show!
More Geoff Keighley!
Yeah, what a
fucking nigger.
look at him!
So without further ado, Hour 1. So before I jump into the games real quick, I just want to say one thing, and that's that if there's one positive to take away from this year, it's that these showrunners seem to have finally realized, or at least have started to realize at the very least, that gamers do not want to see DEI bullshit made by diversity hires who are most likely visiting on H-1B visas, or games that look like Tumblr art tranny shit made by men who wish they were women but never will be, to the point where the majority of this trash has actually been moved to the side shows such as black-only developers or woman-led games, which I didn't watch because I knew it would be exactly that, and judging from what my friends had told me, I made the right choice, especially since almost 30 minutes of the black-led game show was some fat, peaceful rioter talking about South of Wakanda, a game that almost nobody fucking bought, and I made the mistake of playing for a few hours on stream, and it was one of the most boring, disgusting piles of slop I've played in years. So long and good riddance.
And I was one of the writers on South of Midnight, and I guess that's what I'm here to talk to you guys about today. I wanted to know how you did your taxes, but since we're going to be talking about that aspect of it is more interactive.
2 hours later.
Alia, the way all these kind of mythical...
Now let's get into the future of gaming. So to my surprise, the first game to be revealed in the entire show actually caught my attention a little bit, with that being Mortal Shell 2. And this came as even more a surprise to me because I thought the first game was kind of a piece of shit. It was just an extremely generic Souls-like with janky animations, stiff controls, and a weird parry gimmick where you can turn to stone. But I gave it a shot and I was not a fan. But judging by the trailer from the second game, they really seem to have stepped it up a bit. And it looks way higher quality overall, both in the graphical department and the combat department, offering what seems to be a bunch of new weapons, including both guns, various different ranged weapons, and offering more mobility, almost to the point where they seem to maybe even be veering away from the Souls-like mentality, which is something I would personally love to see, because I really don't feel like we get enough action hack and slash games nowadays in the same vein as DMC or Ninja Gaiden, and for some reason every fucking developer just wants to copy Miyazaki and follow the fucking Souls-like recipe, which at this point I'm just tired of. Even though I do like the genre, I'm just tired of every developer trying to copy it, leaving us with virtually no combo games outside of the ones we already know. So I will be keeping my eye on this game, especially since I was a huge fan of the enemy design, and depending on how this game turns out, I could definitely see it being some good Edge Kino. The next big game that was talked about, and is barely even worth mentioning by this point, since by the time this video comes out, this game will most likely already be released, and that's of course Death Stranding 2, where we once again, for what feels like the 5th year in a row, get to witness Geoff Keighley get on his hands and knees and describe to the audience what Kojima's taint smells like as he stares into his slanted eyes in pure admiration, even though he's a complete fucking hack who should make movies instead of games. games. And this footage we're shown next is a perfect example of that, since like quite a few games that are revealed, there is no fucking gameplay, and once more, just a cinematic cutscene. And I don't know about you, but I don't give a fuck about a game until I actually see gameplay. You could have the coolest cinematic ever, but it doesn't mean anything if the actual gameplay winds up being dog shit. Especially for a game like Amazon Wagey Delivery Driver 2. But there's no point in wasting any more breath on fucking Death Stranding. Up next, some lady with more chins than a prehistoric tree has rings presents to us some fucking medieval, seems to be war simulator type game, but once again, who gives a fuck? There's basically zero gameplay to actually get excited about. As she then drags some horrendously fucked up looking Japanese man on stage with worse teeth than a medieval British peasant to present the new Sonic Racers game, which does look like it could be pretty fun. At the very least, I will say that it could be a nice cheaper alternative to fucking $80 Mario Kart, since I highly doubt this game will be $80. On top of the fact that you won't have to buy a fucking Switch 2 to play it either, which if you're anything like me, you will not be buying, at least for a while. And apparently, Hatsune Miku and fucking Ichiban from Like a Dragon will be guest racers. So I mean, I guess that's pretty cool. But I can't say that this will be a day one game for me by any means. Especially when it looks like the first DLC they'll be having is for fucking Minecraft in a Sonic Racers game. Before the next big game, there's also a reveal for Code Vein 2, which is basically just anime Souls-like. I played a bit of the first one, but much like Mortal Shell, I really was not that big of a fan of it, for pretty much the exact same reasons as that game, being that it just felt cheap and janky. So I really didn't put any more than like 5 hours into it, and I felt like I had no reason to go back, especially when there are higher quality Souls-likes to be played instead. But maybe like Mortal Shell 2, they'll step it up with this one and give me more of a reason to try it, but only time will tell, since once again this reveal is mostly cinematic trailers, which don't do jack shit in terms of my excitement. So before we hop into the next big reveal, I just want to quickly mention these next two games, and that's this cartoony looking shooter game along with the Game of Thrones mobile game. So the cartoony shooter game is called Mouse P.I., and it looks to be animated in the same art style akin to something like Steamboat Willie, the old Mickey Mouse cartoon in black and white. And personally, I really like this old animation style. I grew up watching old cartoons way before my time, so I definitely have a nostalgic spot for it. But depending on if this game actually winds up being fun and plays into the old-timey comedy, I could definitely see myself at the very least streaming this and having a bit of fun with it. So we'll see how this game goes and how much it winds up being. And on a less positive note, we have the Game of Thrones mobile game. Me personally, I was never that big of a fan of Game of Thrones, mostly due to all the man-on-man action.
Which way do you like it?
And a lot of the characters I wound up liking, either just getting completely sidelined or just dying in what felt like a somewhat stupid fashion. I will at the very least say that given how big of a fan base this franchise has, I'm very surprised that it took this long for Game of Thrones to not just get any sort of game, but for it to also wind up being a fucking shitty cash grab mobile game. So while on one hand I almost want to feel bad for Game of Thrones fans, it's pretty hard for me to do that, since if you're still a Game of Thrones fan after seeing the show's finale, I feel like it's also a case of you get what you fucking deserve. And hopefully this game has a lifespan of about 2 months and then fucking dies after they realize no one's stupid enough to spend money on it. But let's be real, you and me both know that's wishful thinking. Morons will spend money on anything. And finally, the big reveal, which is actually probably the game I'm looking forward to the most, is actually Atomic Heart 2. And you might hear that and go, why the fuck is that the game you're most excited for? The first game wasn't that good. But me personally, I had a really good time with the first game. It was certainly rough around the edges, and had many things that could have been improved about it, such as the open world being relatively pointless, annoying fucking stealth mechanics where the robots would just constantly keep respawning, and somewhat repetitive enemies. I at the very least appreciated Atomic Heart for what it was, being the studio's first real game and all, having been an animation Mountain Studio beforehand, and I honestly did have a really good time with the combat, combining all the different weapons and the hand powers, even if it was a bit janky at times. And more than anything, I really liked the music, having been mostly made by Geoffrey Day and heavily inspired by Mick Gordon. And judging by this trailer, it really does look like they took most of the complaints from the first game to heart and genuinely made an effort to improve them if this trailer is anything to go off of, as it looks like there's tons of new ways to traverse the world, along with everything being much more lively, which leads me to believe that maybe the RPG mechanics will be a lot more heavily influenced into the game. And it also looks like you won't be playing as P3 anymore, the main character from the first game, but rather he'll be more of a side character in this game, helping you with some of your missions. And while I'm sure a lot of people will look at this trailer and instantly say that the full game will look nothing like this, and usually I would agree, I also thought that about the first game, and sure enough, most of that stuff wound up being present. So I'm gonna try to be a little optimistic about this game for once, and at least give this studio a chance to prove themselves after having some critique from a mass audience. And while it could just wind up biting me in the ass like almost every other fucking game nowadays, it could wind up being something somewhat special, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And on a side note, I just want to say that this studio is not afraid to show off some ass, because along with the twin robots in the first game, there seems to be a plethora of it in this one. But not that that makes a good game or anything, but hey, it's always nice to see. But then, to immediately follow up Atomic Heart 2, there's something I'm a little less optimistic about called The Cube, also being made by Munfish. And the reason I'm less optimistic about this is because it seems like it's going to be a multiplayer MMO type of game, which seems a little overly ambitious for a studio that's only made one actual game so far and is currently working on their second, even bigger game. So I personally would much prefer that they put their resources towards their single player games and future single player projects instead of wasting tons of time, money, and development on something as large as this. And even more so, I'm hoping a game such as this doesn't begin to reveal this company's merchant side, where they begin to nickel and dime you for everything and have microtransactions out the fucking ass. But again, just like with Atomic Heart 2, this is gonna be another case of we'll have to wait and see until they reveal more. And to follow up The Cube, we have some shitty looking Marvel beat 'em up game that seems to be featuring a tranny looking She-Hulk, and all this barely even seems worth talking about. But more importantly, Capcom showed more gameplay footage for Onimusha 2. And all I can really say based off this gameplay footage is that I really hope this game plays more like a hack and slash action game, something more akin to DMC, Bayonetta, Kingdom Hearts, something like that. Just whatever it is, please do not let it be another goddamn Souls-like. We have enough fucking Souls-like right now. There are enough Souls-likes on Steam to probably last you for the next 5 years of your life, if not longer. We need more action games other than Souls-likes. So please, for the love of God, Capcom, go back to your DMC roots and let some of that shine through on Onimusha 2. I'm gonna try to be optimistic about this game because I do want to play it, but I also can't say that my hopes are high given how Capcom has handled its recent games such as Monster Hunter Wilds and Dragon's Dogma 2. What I'm expecting is for it to be extremely unoptimized and most likely have less features than the older games. But at the very least, I am happy to see Capcom bringing back an older franchise, especially since they're also making Okami 2. So before we're presented with our next giant piece of shit, we're first given two smaller pieces of shit, with one of which consisting of a Muppet boxing game where all the fucking Muppets look like they're struggling from fentanyl addiction, and based off what's shown, looks like it might just be yet another shitty fucking movie game, and some game called Killer Inn, which is apparently an Among Us type game where you have to figure out who the killer is, and to me it just looks like every other cheap-ass Chinese asset switch game, so I wouldn't even bother wasting your time or money on this. And then finally, the biggest piece of dog shit out of all of them is revealed: Concord 2.0, I mean Arc Raiders, which on top of already having to play as a black Wakandan queen, since everybody knows that black women are the largest percentage of gamers, and always make sure to support games with a black woman protagonist, they also commit the the second sin of being a cinematic only trailer with zero fucking gameplay. So who even knows what this piece of shit is gonna wind up being like? But personally, I can't wait to wander throughout the galaxy collecting EBT stamps to feed my 17 kids. And really, there's only 2 other games I find actually worth talking about in the first hour of the Game Fest, since everything else after Arc Riders is either some mobile gacha game anime slop or some Tumblr-esque troon shit that looks like it was made by people that inject HRT on the daily. And on a quick side note, I just want to say this hag is way too fucking old to be wearing this outfit. Who let grandma walk out here looking like a Tennessee cheerleader? At this age, your shirt better be touching both your goddamn shoulders.
Why are you fucking here, man? You're so old. Where's your wife? Go home to your family, dude.
And there's also a trailer for a DLC expansion for the Dune game featuring another black queen and an albino black man. But the 2 games I wanted to talk about real quickly are Chrono Odyssey and the new Mafia game. But I don't have too much to say about Chrono Odyssey other than that the gameplay looked to be pretty cool, and hopefully, judging by what I've seen, it does seem to be more of a fast-paced hack and slash type of game over another Souls-like. At least, like I said before, that's what I'm hoping for. I'm just getting really burnt out of Souls-likes, and this is coming from someone that was honestly a pretty big fan of the genre. But I probably will be following this game a bit, just to see if it'll scratch that more classic God of War type feel in terms of gameplay. And then of course, like I said, the second game is the new Mafia game being made by Hangar 13 and 2K. Yeah, that amazing studio. But I've been saying this ever since the first trailer that was revealed, that I'm pretty sure that this Mafia game is just gonna be another fucking movie game. And the reason I think this is because almost every trailer has just been fucking cinematic cutscene after cinematic cutscene with virtually zero gameplay. And if a video game doesn't want to show off its gameplay, then I'm gonna have to assume that it's either A, because they're not too proud of it, or B, because there's not that much of it to show in the first place. So while I would love for there to be a new good Mafia game, my faith in EA is practically fucking non-existent given the type of dog shit this studio tends to pump out. If I were you, I would definitely keep your expectations for this game low, and expect yet another movie game where you might get to touch the controller about once every 20 minutes. And if it does wind up being good, then at least it'll be a nice surprise. So now with all that having been said, the first hour of this shit show is finally come to a head. And unfortunately, it pretty much only goes downhill from here, and I will try to get through it as quickly as possible, so just bear with me. Just as soon as Jeff over here finishes shining Kojima's shaft. Jeff, get over here, Jeff. Kojima finished 5 minutes ago. And to start us off on our second hour, we have the Queen Snoz herself, looking fresh after a long day of infiltrating the American government so that she can divide the people and then take control when we all least expect it. Here to present to us a couple games that she was promised over 3,000 years ago, with one of them being Deadpool VR. Yeah, Deadpool VR. And I really don't have anything to say about this gameplay-wise, because I don't even own a fucking VR headset. I've tried it a few times at friends and families, and while it's a fun gimmick for a couple hours, I've never personally found the desire to buy one, let alone make that my primary way of gaming. And I feel like VR gaming still has a long way to go before it's anywhere close to actual virtual reality. But I just want to say that I am so sick and fucking tired of Deadpool. At one point, I actually thought he was a pretty cool character in the comics, and I enjoyed his little gimmick of breaking the fourth wall and all that, but at this point, Deadpool has just been so fucking overdone that I'm tired of seeing him because he's basically in fucking everything. He's become the fucking Pedro Pascal of the Marvel universe, and it's gotten to the point now where I find his gimmick to just be fucking cringy and overdone rather than actually funny and meta. But give this goddamn character a break. Let him sit on the shelf and collect dust for a few fucking years before you shove him down our throats some more, and experiencing that annoyance in VR is not something I'm trying to do. But luckily, to follow up that piece of shit, we have Dying Light: The Beast. And personally, I'm a pretty big fan of this franchise. The second game was kind of dog-ass, especially on release. They improved it a bit over time to make the combat and mechanics feel more like the first game, but that still doesn't change a lot of the core mechanics such as the story or the RPG elements, and it still doesn't excuse the game for releasing in such a shit state to begin with, especially when they had the first game already there as the perfect template. But I will say, based off the trailers and the gameplay that they've shown, it does seem to be a lot more similar to the first game, which is of course good news. And they're bringing back the main character from the first game, Crane, which is also good news because the main character from the second game fucking sucked ass in comparison. The dude basically had superpowers yet was getting sucker punched every 5 fucking seconds.
This time, I'll do it right.
In the search for his dead sister. There also seems to be a couple new zombie types that seem to be pretty interesting looking, and just like the others, it'll be 4-player co-op, so I'm definitely looking forward to playing it with my buddies. But really, after the state of the second game, and with how long it took them to actually improve it, the quality of the beast will pretty much determine if I have any interest in this franchise going forward. So Techland better not fucking let me down. But following Dying Light, we have some Tumblr-esque tranny shit, or if I had to guess, it looks like you'll be playing as a gay dude with his 2 lesbian girlfriends as you go throughout a series of garbage-ass mini-games in yet another abysmal fucking movie game that probably about a grand total of 50 people will buy if they're lucky. And while this game could just wind up being a harmless story about high school kids discovering themselves, knowing modern writers, it'll instead most likely be about learning how to suck cock and eat box. Now, I would like to give a quick mention to one of the smaller games featured on here called Acts of Blood, because I recently played the demo and thought it was pretty fun for what it was. And it's probably the closest thing to a Sifu sequel that we're gonna get for quite a long time, since the developers of that game decided to make some gay-ass soccer game instead.
Señoras y señores, va Modric, va, habilita a Vinicius,
Although its combat was more akin to the Batman Arkham games, it's aesthetically a lot like Sifu, while also being a bit more violent and gritty, and also having a heavier emphasis on weapons, including guns which you can also aim over the shoulder, and I had quite a good time messing around with it in the arena survival mode. So while I don't quite remember how much the final game is going to be on release, I will say that based off the demo, it does need a bit more polish, so hopefully they'll smooth out a lot of the edges before the release date, because it definitely has some potential, and if any of this at least sounds interesting to you, then I would definitely check out the demo on Steam, because it does have quite a bit of content on it. So after we proceed through a bunch of
Crap, mega crap.
one of which being a James Bond DLC for Hitman, we arrive at the next game I wanted to talk about a little bit called Ill, which is also being made by Munfish, the same studio currently working on Atomic Heart 2. So the reason Ill caught my attention is because A, it's been a while since I've played an original new horror game that I've actually enjoyed, and B, because much like Atomic Heart 2, it's being made by Munfish, and I want to see what this studio is really capable of doing. Some of the enemy designs also caught my attention, such as this giant mech-suited enemy with a fucking 50 caliber cannon attached to the end of its arm, and the overall pretty impressive visuals, which you would expect from an animation studio. But ultimately, just like Atomic Heart 2, the real question will be if the finished product actually looks like the trailer. And like I said with Atomic Heart 2, I do have some faith, since I had that same thought from when watching the first Atomic Heart Heart trailer, and the game did turn out to look pretty much just like it. I also know not to have too much faith in any of these gaming companies, whether they're an American studio or not. I mean, just look at how cucked CDPR has become with their Jay Leno look-alike Siri. But really, there was even less to go off of on this trailer than there was the Atomic Heart 2 one. So just like almost every other fucking game on this list, it'll pretty much just be a matter of we'll wait and see. And in case you're one of the people that are still retarded enough that you actually need to be told this, do not fucking pre-order, because I promise you that no in-game item they offer you is worth potentially getting fucked in the ass by a corpo.
So after Ill, there's a few more games which I don't even feel like are worth talking about. Just slop, and more slop with some fucking Chinese mobile gacha games. And some other smaller indie titles which I'm never gonna fucking play if I'm just being honest here. The only really noteworthy thing to mention here would be a little teaser for RE9. And there's still a lot we don't know about it. Other than that, it's gonna be a female lead. And apparently there's a lot of rumors about it being open world, which I personally do not like the sound of, because open world usually translates to big empty time wasting bullshit where you go around looking for collectibles or other time wasty things like that, and it doesn't really seem to fit the nature of RE, along with it apparently taking place in the ruins of Raccoon City, which while I do think is pretty cool and could definitely make for an interesting story, also kind of reeks of nostalgia bait, so I guess we'll really just have to see in what direction they take the story in. And at first I was excited because maybe you would play as two characters, with one of those two characters being Leon, since he's personally connected to Raccoon City, but apparently Capcom has made a recent announcement saying that Leon will not be in the game because apparently they don't know how to make a scary Resident Evil game that has Leon because he's too good, or some other stupid ass reason like that. But in my opinion, that just reeks of Capcom's inability to actually write a proper horror story, and I also find that kind of hypocritical considering that Resident Evil 8 wasn't fucking scary at all, unless you consider big-tittied vampire goth ladies that can turn into dragons to be fucking horrifying. Then RE8's a good horror game, but I personally didn't find it to be at all, and I definitely found it to be one of the weaker games in the series. But really, I guess we'll just have to wait and see how the final product is. I can't exactly say that I'm optimistic based on what we've heard so far. But with that out of the way, the next actual game reveal was for Wu Chang, which me and my buddy GameSense were actually talking about for a minute, and we're kind of looking forward to because we were hoping it would be a fun action hack and slash type of game, more akin to something like Ninja Gaiden, only for more recent announcements to say that it's gonna be yet another fucking Souls-like. So now the only thing we really have to look forward to is the fact that the MC's pretty hot, and hope that the combat that's closer to something like Kazan, which is way faster paced and combo oriented as compared to one of the Souls games. Because really, that's the only thing that's going to keep my interest at this point, because I'm quite frankly burnt the fuck out of Souls-likes. Like I've already said, it feels like every fucking action game to come out now is a fucking Souls-like with the same type of formula of bosses with overinflated health pools and damage output, forcing you to play all these games in one manner, which is learning the boss's attack pattern and then wait for your turn to attack, all while dodge rolling and having extremely limited mobility, along with options of attack. That's one reason I like Kazan's combat, because it at least felt like more of a hack and slash game, and gave you way more options for going on the offensive. But considering that this is also a Chinese-made game, I'm expecting it to be way more like their recent success Wukong, especially since graphically it almost looks identical, but of course that could just also be because of the generic Unreal Engine 5 assets. First they made Wukong, then they made Wu Chang. So now we're gonna get into our next game, not made by the Chinese, but instead made by the Shoe Swiper clan, and that is Wu Tang. So I'm not even gonna lie, at a first glance, I actually thought that Brass Lion, the developer team, was a Black Lives Matter organization or some bullshit like that, especially after seeing this art mural of good boys who didn't do nothing. And in this game, you'll be playing as a black queen, as I'd imagine you vigorously defend the back of your neck as you fight overly aggressive police officers who constantly deliver Falcon drops one by one, all in an effort to reduce your ability to breathe. And upon looking at this game's website, it's of course an all-black developer team, so don't expect too much of the quality department. It even says right here that one of the objectives of the game is to protect your chain.
Shit, Negro. That's all you had to say.
Because, you know, you gotta have your drip, you know what I'm saying? And I personally would like to tell you guys what this studio is all about, as they have it right here on their website. And because I'm a proud supporter of this developer team, I will read it as if I was one of them. So here we go. Shit! Brass Lion Entertainment is creating authentic, impactful experiences that reflect our reality and our aspirations, yo. We break barriers, elevate voices, and craft barriers to build a legacy of quality that empowers our community. Shit! With passion and purpose, our multi-discipline, multi-creative work ensures everyone feels heard, inspired. We make dope entertainment, all culture, no vulture. Shit, know what I'm saying? Our vision is to lead the future of entertainment by creating a legacy rooted in authenticity, creativity, and community. We building a world where diversity is celebrated, culture always sets the tone, and our work inspires positive, lasting change in the industries we inhabit. Shit. But needless to say, I cannot wait to not be one of the 500 people that buy this game. And finally, to wrap up the second hour, the last game I would like to talk about is Splitgate 2. But what I want to talk about actually isn't the game, because there really isn't that much to talk about. It's just your extremely generic first-person arena shooter, except this time it has portals. Wow, so fucking unique and innovative. But instead, what I want to talk about is this dickless little rat right here, Ian. Funny, another dickless little rat we know is also named Ian. But this guy and his smug fucking face just rubbed me the wrong way, because he decides to come out here and start his whole fucking spiel wearing his whole "how do you do fellow gamer" outfit, all to run his fat fucking gob and yap for about 3 minutes about how his game is different from all these other corporate cash grabs, and he makes a point to mention microtransactions and shady practices that these company uses, all while promising fresh and innovative gameplay, unlike Call of Duty and games of that sort. Meanwhile, Splitgate 2 is a perfect example of some of the many things wrong with the current state of gaming. And one quick glance on the Steam store shows mixed reviews, and surprise surprise, the majority of those negative reviews are for, take a guess, garbage, unstable servers, and extremely overpriced malicious microtransactions. Yeah, don't worry guys, Ian's game isn't like all those other low effort cash grabs, because his has portals. But needless to say, fuck this guy, fuck Splitgate 2, and honestly, fuck his parent for raising such a spineless, two-faced, cock-swallowing little bitch. And even if this game is free, you should not play it, or give a fucking cent to this slimeball. And with Ian's dog face out of the way, that wraps up the second hour. And hopefully you haven't dozed off just yet, because there's still 2 more to go. Oh boy, I bet you just can't wait. And we're starting out the third hour extra strong with an absolute fucking banger that I cannot wait to not play, called Snap and Grab. Made by what looks to be a trans man who still has chin hair and a gay black dude who looks like he's heading down to a Miami nightclub the second this camera cuts off. And to start off, I just want to say that this game has a disgusting art style, and you will be playing as what appears to be
mutant tranny characters as you go around planning out heist so that you can steal shit to fund your HRT medication. I mean, hey man, I guess those government checks just aren't enough nowadays. But you can already tell just by looking at this that this will be one of those games on Steam that has about 150 players max, and absolutely nobody is talking about within a week or two. And holy shit, man, I don't even know what else to really say at this point, because the show just fucking dies. And you know it starts to die when they start doing nothing but shilling indie slop for like the next 2 hours. 2 hours! And you know what the worst part is? Almost none of these fucking indie games look good. And this leads directly into my problem with indie games. People always say, if you have such a problem with the modern gaming industry, then why don't you just play indie games? How the fuck am I supposed to play indie games when this is the type of bullshit that's being offered? I think the last actual indie game I played and enjoyed was fucking Sifu, and it's been how many years since Sifu came out now? And even then, it's not like Sifu in itself was something super original. It was simple, basic, but it had great, well thought out mechanics, and who doesn't love a good beat 'em up inspired by kung fu movies? But out of like all these countless indie games that have been shown, I think there was probably about 2 of them that maybe caught my interest a little bit. Almost every fucking thing that was shown here is literally some point and click garbage, like it's a fucking Flash game on one of those websites you grew up playing. Something that just looks gay as fuck, made by woman developers or actual knob slobbers. Yet another fucking roguelike in some disgusting art style. And that's another thing. Why do all these games have such shitty looking art styles? I mean, geez, man, there's literally games on the PlayStation 2. Hell, PlayStation 1 or older that are way more visually appealing than these games. I mean, hell, just DMC 3. DMC 3 still has a great art style. Hell, DMC 1 still has a great art style compared to half these fucking indie games. They're just ugly and they hurt to look at, and they all remind me of the same fucking Tumblr art. So I guess I'll just quickly wrap up the third hour with a couple of the games that did get my attention a little bit, and I might wind up playing a little bit of my free time, because my god, man, I almost fell asleep in this last hour and a half. Or I guess I should be a bit more specific and say that out of those 2 games, I only actually want to play one of them, and one of them I actually just want to make fun of real quick because of how dog shit it is, and the fact that it's just blatant propaganda to anyone who doesn't eat paint chips and swallow bricks. But in between all the generic roguelike and fucking shitty puzzle games, there was one game that I noticed because it once again had an all-black development team, like the Wu-Tang Clan gang. And much like that trainee looking game, it's yet another heist game. And you will not believe me when I say that this fat black bitch with a forehead bigger than my future that might as well say advertise here, comes up to blab about a game where you and your crew of black saviors go around and rob white people of quote unquote stolen African artifacts to get them back for your brothers and sisters back home, to reclaim your heritage, you hear? But I was borderline laughing throughout this trailer at how fucking absurd it is. And it also does a great job of just really letting you see into the mindset of how some of these people truly think. To be such a fucking ingrate that you think that you're owed any of these things, or to think that you have any sort of ownership over it. I guarantee you this is what these developers wish they could actually do, and would view themselves as heroes or some sort of modern day Robin Hood if they were to act upon these things in real life. I guarantee you if they were to go into an African art museum, they would be fucking seething and foaming at the mouth the whole time, absolutely shitting and coping the thought of these stolen African artifacts collecting dust in these white man museums. But honestly, fuck you and fuck you guys for making this game, and I hope the money you wasted on making it, because nobody's gonna fucking buy this, was worth pushing your propaganda. So now with that fecal material out of the way, let's move on to, I guess, the one indie game that I might play a little bit.
So the one indie game here I do want to check out a little bit is called Rattatan, and apparently it's made by the same people that made a game called Papaton or Papaton. I'm not sure how it's pronounced because I've never played it, but apparently a lot of people like that game. But outside of being one of the few games here to actually have a unique art style that doesn't look like trainee shit, generic UE5 garbage, or just some generic ugly art style, it also appears to be a rhythm game with gear-like mechanics. And I actually do like rhythm games. I grew up playing Guitar Hero, Rock Band, and some other rhythm games on the phone and other Flash games. And honestly, I don't really know why, I just like keeping a beat. But in this game, it seems like you slowly gather more of these Rattatons or whatever they're called as you build like a little mini army. And then as you defeat bosses and go through levels, you get new gear and upgrades to make your little guys more powerful to help you with the boss fights. But it's hard to really say what this game is gonna be like 100% until I actually get a chance to play it, but I'll probably check it out. And at least from this trailer, these two Asian gentlemen appear to be pretty humble, so who knows, they might support the game for a while and add more content, but as long as it's a reasonable price, I'll check it out on release. And with that out of the way, that's really the last game of the third hour, but I do just want to say real quick that the last game they showed in the third hour is a game where you play as a fucking tire. A tire. Jesus Christ, man. Who approved this fucking game? Who put the development time into making a game where you play as a goddamn fucking tire? And just how dead is the gaming industry right now that the Summer Game Awards couldn't find a better game to show here than a game where you play as a fucking tire? What are we doing? What are we fucking doing here? A tire? God damn. But in case you're still here, it's time for the final hour. And with all that, we have finally made it to the final half hour. Thank God. Because I don't think I can handle talking about this piece of dog shit any longer. Especially since this final half hour is the absolute worst of what's to come. Because there isn't even a single fucking game worth talking about in this final half hour. Instead, allow me to waste a bit of your time the same way I wasted my time watching this, and describe this final 30 minutes of shit show for you. Because at first, you know, we gotta thank our generous sponsors.
Borrow $50.
$30? What do you need $20 for?
And after we thank our sponsors, we are then asked ourselves for donations, as if I could even possibly fathom giving a single fucking dime to these shits. These absolute fucking curb lickers. This fucking 60-year-old hag comes up asking me like she's a Salvation Army for fucking donations, even saying they're 100% tax deductible, as if I give a single fuck. Then after we're sold Girl Scout cookies, this fat, greasy, soylent fuck, who is apparently head of music or some shit like that, even though it looks like the only instrument he's ever played is the skin flute, runs his gob for a few minutes. Then we are then greeted to some bitch who just comes out and starts ripping on the fucking guitar for a few minutes. What is this? I don't give a fuck. I came here to see games. So shut the fuck up, you pink-haired bitch. That's probably not even a woman, by the way. That's probably some fucking troon in disguise, which is why their face is hidden by their goddamn dyed hair. So shut the fuck up, put the microphone down, put the guitar in the closet, and either show me some games or titty, or get the fuck out. And on second glance, holy shit, that is 100% a dude. Go away! Get off my screen! After that, some ordinary gamer comes out to talk about some extremely generic, shitty-ass looking shit that looks like it could be a fucking mobile game, and probably is for all I care. I basically zoned out at this point, because I was too traumatized by the pink-haired tranny on screen. And why is the camera getting so fucking close to Mudasar's face? I swear to God I can smell the Ganges River from here. Honestly, the fact this dude's Indian is probably why this game looks like it's a mobile game, because it's designed to be played on the shitter where Indians spend 95% of their free time.
And if you thought it couldn't get any worse than that, then some old fucking pedophile who looks like Herbert the Pervert comes out, dressed like a fucking strawberry, and a pocket full of candy to lead kids into the back of his van, and one of his young victims dressed like a pirate standing right next to him. And if I had to guess, she's dressed like a pirate because this strawberry's over here seeking some booty.
Get your fat ass back here.
And after their mouths proceed to suffer from fecal drip for a few minutes, the credits roll and this goddamn Summer Games Fest is finally fucking over. You know, during the first hour or so of this game show, I thought we might actually wind up having a somewhat decent year for 2026, considering that there were already a few releases that caught my attention right off the bat, which is not something that tends to happen in these dog-ass shows. Yet the longer it went on, the worse it fucking got, with the final 2 hours barely even being humanly tolerable. I wouldn't be surprised if this whole show was some test by the CIA to conduct an experiment on the human psyche and just how much estrogen you could tolerate. But after this, all I can say is god damn, the next year of gaming is looking fucking bleak and is yet another firm reminder of the current state of the gaming industry. And all those people out there who think there's gonna be some sort of big culture shift or whatever because Trump was elected, or all this woke DEI bullshit is gonna go anywhere anytime soon, this should be a reality check for you because it's only just begun and I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. If anything, they're just gonna try to hide it a bit more and not make it as in your face. But it's still clearly very much there, whether the majority of it's been moved to sideshows or not. I mean, for fuck's sakes, we were just greeted to some fucking femboy ripping on a guitar for 2 minutes with long white and pink hair. We're fucked. But if you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like and a sub, and I'll see you guys on the next one.